How are your limbs, Noni?
Anna?
How are your limbs?
You're still there, I think. I gave them egg cartons for a while to soak up some of the liquid fluid. Okay, here we
Oh,
go.
that's not good.
Yeah.
Cold butter?
Yeah. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I call to order this regular council meeting of January 31st, 2024 at 7:01. Tonight, we recognize that the village of Lytton is situated on the unceded traditional territory of the Ntlaka'an people. This evening, here at our council table, we have corporate officer Lisa Storoshenko, as well as councillors Lightfoot, McCann, and Toss. Councillor Michelle is joining us by Zoom this evening. Just going to ask that the noise just stayed really quiet back there. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 3, adoption of the agenda. And we need a motion to do that for tonight's agenda. So move, Toss. Thank you. A seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Now, adoption of the minutes from the January 10th meeting, the regular council meeting. We need a motion. Councillor Lightfoot, seconder.
I'll second that.
Councillor McCann, are there any errors or omissions? No, seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. Great, thank you. We have no business arising from the minutes or unfinished business, and so we are going to move on to delegations. And this evening we do have a presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to our corporate officer, please, to introduce.
So Tanya Collins, I believe you're on the line. I'm not sure if she's there.
She is.
Yeah.
Tanya is having some computer difficulties, so hopefully we can connect with her.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Tanya, you there?
Hi. I'm
We
here.
can
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Tanya. Welcome.
Yay. Thank you.
So Lisa is just putting up your PowerPoint presentation here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm having some major computer issues today, so I don't know quite what's going on, but it has not been cooperating today.
Kidding. All right. So yeah, Tanya, you're good to go.
Okay. All I see is your desktop.
Oh, still going that. Okay, let's just do this again. Hold on, everyone. Stop share.
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Collins, and I am the Emergency Program Coordinator with Lytton First Nation. And I'm here tonight to present on the 2024 Tecumseh Fire Smart programming and some of the activities that we're proposing under our upcoming application. So actually, can you scoot back? I think there's a couple slides back, if I'm not mistaken. Or am I on the first one here? Oh, no, okay, sorry. So I'll start with the background of the Fire Smart programming. So this first started in 2016. We actually started with 2 separate programs in the community, one with the Village of Lytton and one with Lytton First Nation. In 2019, we actually combined the 2 programs because as we were delivering many of the sort of activities through the programming, we determined that they were quite similar and were for community as a whole. And that's when we actually formed the Tecumseh Fire Smart Committee. So the program activities through the Tecumseh Fire Smart program are implemented through the Fire Smart Coordinator and are governed through the Fire Smart Committee. Our current committee representation includes the Village of Lytton, Lytton First Nations, BC Wildfire Service, Lytton Fire Rescue, TNRD, BC Emergency Health Services, and any interested community members. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of our current committee. So from left to right, we have, or a part of our current committee. So Roy Spinks, Implementation Manager for Lytton First Nation, Councillor Jason Robertson, Councillor Noni McCann, Jackie Raffel, the Lands Manager for Lytton First Nation, Director Tricia Thorpe, Area I Director for the TNRD, myself as the Fire Smart Coordinator, and Councillor Jezawad Lightfoot with the Village. We took this photo in the middle of summer, so we're missing a big contingent of the wildfire guys. I think they were out in deployment when we took the picture. So, okay, next. So through our program, we're applying through the Union of BC Municipalities, the Community Resiliency Initiative, Fire Smart Community Funding Support. The program has actually increased to 2 years approval for programming this year, so that's awfully nice. It was annually previously to this intake. So in order to qualify in the Fire Smart program, you have to meet some predefined criteria. So you have to have a Fire Smart coordinator in place, you have to have a Fire Smart committee in place, and an acceptable community wildfire resiliency plan. The programming also increased the funding for eligible communities this year that are located in high wildfire risk class. So they've increased the funding from $100,000 per year to $200,000. So that means each eligible community can receive up to $400,000 over the 2-year program. So Lytton and the Village are applying as a regional proposal. Lytton will be the lead applicant with the Village as a supporting applicant. Our program is requesting $746,533.20 as the funding ask to deliver our programming in the community. The activities are grouped under 13 categories. There's also separate worksheets in the application that you have to fill out if you want to apply for fuel management on Crown or municipal lands, as well as community wildfire resiliency plans. So next slide, please. So some of our highlights for our activities include hiring a full-time Fire Smart coordinator for a 2-year term. We'd like to continue with the education programming through community information sessions, cleanup days, neighborhood Fire Smart recognition days, and continue distributing Fire Smart information and literature throughout the community in various different ways, and also into school libraries. We'd also like to expand the literature distribution through our digital platform. So we actually created a Facebook page not too long ago. So we'd like to increase some of the distribution of literature through that means as well too. We'd like to undertake some policy and practice development for buildings, land, and landscaping requirements. And this will be sort of in complementing all the ongoing activities now through rebuild. This next one, we've wanted to develop a web-based burning permit intake for quite some time. So we've actually had this included in the program for a while. We just haven't quite made our way to being able to get this done. So this would be a way that people could submit burning permits online that would provide notifications for all the organizations that would need to sort of know where people are burning and when and what times, that kind of thing. We'd also like to continue with our committee monthly meetings. This is where we discuss program progress and plan. Next slide, please. Also including funding to plan and execute some emergency planning community events and tabletop exercises, completing water delivery assessments, Also assessing some water systems for the quality and quantity of water for fire suppression. Proceeding with an equipment purchase for a structure protection unit trailer that will be equipped with all the equipment needed and will be staged in the community at all times and won't get deployed out during wildfire season. Line item for training for fire department members and hosting a wildfire mitigation specialist training session. Completing some mitigation activities on existing critical infrastructure and community assets to improve the fire resiliency for some of these existing buildings. And completing additional assessments and mitigations for green spaces and culturally significant sites. Some of the mitigation activities could include landscaping or fuel reduction activities in these areas. Next slide, please. We're also including the prescription development and operational treatment funding to complete further fuel reduction activities on the municipal plan portion up above Loring Way, which is immediately adjacent to the fuel management treatments presently occurring on DL 225. So this is all up above Loring Way Road. And we're including a funding asked to complete a wildfire resiliency plan for Lytton First Nation as the village of Lytton completed their update in 2022. So that is, in a very quick nutshell, what we are looking at applying for this year through the Fire Smart Community Funding Support.
Thank you, Tanya. Council, does anyone have any questions or comments for Tanya?
Looks wonderful.
It's quite a comprehensive plan you have there.
It's ambitious.
Sorry?
It's ambitious, but it's
Yes. Yes, and a large amount of funding. What do you think? Do you think we have a good chance of receiving that funding?
I do. If we can get through some of the hurdles, I think we do have a very good chance of getting it. As I say, we've had funding support since 2016 for this programming, and all our reporting requirements are up to date. And yeah, so I can't see any reason why we shouldn't, but.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Well, if there's no other, sorry.
Tanya, you might have said, but can you remind me what the timeline is? So the proposal goes in and then you hear back, and I might have missed that. What did you say? When would all this come into effect?
I'm hoping that the review process is going to be within 90 days of submission. That's what UBCM is kind of indicating what the review time will be. So I'm thinking about 90 days, so early spring.
Early spring. Oh, that'd be so awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you again, Tanya. We have a recommended motion to put forward here. Who would like to read and make that motion?
I will.
Councillor McCann.
I will move that the Village of Lytton supports the activities included in Lytton First Nations application to the 2024 UBCM Community Resiliency Investment Program, Fire Smart Community Funding, and supports application-based funding request, and that Lytton First Nation will receive and manage the grant funding on the Village of Lytton's behalf.
Great, a seconder. Councillor Lightfoot. And unless there are any other comments or questions, all those in favor? Carried. Well, thank you once again, Tanya.
Yes.
We look forward to hearing more about this as it progresses.
Perfect. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, which is public comment on matters relating to the agenda. And I'm going to turn it over to Theo Storoshenko.
So members of the public are now invited to comment on matters relating to the agenda. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on the reactions at the bottom of your screen and then clicking raise hand. When it's your turn, what I'll do is I'll read your name and you'll be asked to unmute yourself. You'll get a pop-up on your screen asking you to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to please state your name and your address and the agenda item that you are speaking to. Does anyone wish to speak? Please raise your hand now. I see no one, so I'll call a second time for online. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. And we do have someone that does want to speak here at the hall, so come on up.
Bernie Wagner, 47. Mayor and council. We are very much in favor of that first $5,000 grant that would be given for the archaeology. And I'm going to repeat myself again. We want new people to come in, be attracted. So I would like to see that 57 or 50% for the building permit extended to everybody, and maybe extend it a little bit. Anyway, that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? No? All right. So that does conclude our public comment portion. So back to your worship.
Back to the agenda, and we have item 8, which is staff reports. And we have our CIO will speak to this, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Good evening, everybody. I actually wasn't planning to make any comments on these next couple of resolutions. I think they're fairly straightforward. So I'll pass it back over to you, Mayor O'Connor.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So item 8.1.1 is the Lytton Chamber of Commerce Council appointment, and we have a recommended motion. Councillor Lightfoot.
I move that council approve Councillor Jennifer Toss to be the Lytton Chamber of Commerce ex officiado director representing the village of Lytton.
Great. A seconder. Councillor Toss. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And carried. Perfect. Okay, now on to the Lytton Museum Council appointment. We have a motion.
Don't you make that one?
Sure, Councillor
I
McCann.
will move that council appoint Councillor Jessica Lightfoot to the Lytton Museum Board.
And a seconder.
Seconded.
Councillor Toss. And any comments or questions regarding that? Seeing none, all those in favor? And carried. Congratulations to Councillor Toss and Councillor Lightfoot, who will represent us on those committees. On to item number 8.1.3, which is the Archaeology Grant Program. And now I'll turn it over to our CAO.
Thank you, and I'll keep it this time. So thank you. This report is regarding a proposal to establish a program to help assist with the archaeology costs that the property owners are going to encounter as they move into the rebuilding phase. So as we know, all of the costs of rebuilding are increasing. We're hearing getting lots of information about increased, construction costs and permitting and archaeology and everything else. And so as we've discussed before, a bit of the challenge with the archaeology is it's a bit of an unknown as well. People don't know what the cost is going to be. So this proposal would see each property owner in the village be eligible for a $5,000 contribution towards their archaeology costs based on a couple of criteria. And the criteria would be very closely aligned with the building permit reduction criteria. So anyone who's submitted a building permit application by June 30th would be eligible for this program as well. This program, the costs would be incurred up until November the 1st because it would lag the building. It could lag the building permit process. The way it was intended to work was that if an owner has engaged an archaeologist under a valid HCA archaeology permit and has incurred costs for either planning or monitoring or some of the later data analysis and reporting that needs to occur, they would bring that invoice to the Village of Lytton, to the finance department, the finance department would pay the first $5,000 of the invoice directly to the archaeologist, and then the property owner would be required to submit the rest themselves. So this program would be we're a little bit out of order here, but this program would be coming out of the grant that is later on the agenda for the contribution agreement. So hopefully we agree to that. And then that would be the funding source for this grant. I should have had the agenda just reordered a bit, so I apologize for that, but that's the funding
great.
source for this. So that's all my comments related to it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we have a recommended motion, so why don't we put that forward and then we can have discussion. So Councillor Toss.
Put that forward. I move that council approve an archaeology grant of $5,000 for all property owners in the village of Lytton based on terms and conditions outlined in the report to be funded from the 17.6 million rebuilding grant from the province of British Columbia.
And a seconder, Councillor Lightfoot. Now, are there comments or questions, please? Councillor McCann.
Yep. So when I read it through, and from what you just said, CAO, it is a grant of up to $5,000. Everyone is not going to get $5,000. Everyone is going to get their expenses paid up to $5,000. I wonder
That's
if we
correct.
could make sure that that is really clear all the way through the wording in this, because it says a grant of $5,000 for all property owners. And if that's me, I'm thinking, oh, great, I'm going to get $5,000 no matter what my fees are without reading through. So just for clarity's sake, I would ask that anywhere that number shows up, the $5,000, that two words in front of it are up to. In all of this stuff that we're doing with this grant, because I want it to say up to $5,000. It's not everyone's getting $5,000, but that was my concern, is that it's kind of, it flips in
So
and out.
you're amending the motion.
Amending
the motion.
And even throughout, when it says in the discussion and other points, just to make sure that when we go through all of the information here, it's very consistent in the wording all through. That would be my concern.
Yes, I had the same comment in the discussion. It actually at one point says up to.
Yeah.
But I was going to speak to that as well. So what do you recommend we do?
That's fine. We can just amend it to say up to 5,000 for all the property owners. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can we
based
amend
on-
that motion?
Just exactly.
Yeah, friendly amendment.
And the valid invoice, I think is
Yes.
also.
Yeah, and it says here, right? That's the under the terms there.
Yeah.
So I'm all good with that. That was my main concern there.
Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Michelle.
So is that only reimbursable or only to be paid by the village?
Sorry.
Like
What do you-
myself, I've started, and there's a couple others that have started,
Yes.
and so my contractor doesn't submit the payment, we send the invoice to the village?
Yeah, so it depends on the kind of the order of things, but yeah, the intention is that you bring the invoice for it to the village. We pay the first 5,000, and then if your contractor is looking after paying all of your costs for you, including archaeology, then they would be responsible to pay less $5,000 to the archaeologist.
Yeah, but it's so just to be clear though, it's not reimbursable. So if my contractor pays it, like if he's paid something already,
Right.
it's not reimbursable.
Well, if this gets
I
passed,
want to make sure that's clear first.
yeah, if this resolution is passed tonight, then as of tomorrow, we can reimburse people. We can pay archaeologists on people's behalf starting tomorrow.
And retroactively.
If they've already paid the archaeologists and they will have no more costs of archaeology. So if they will have no opportunity, you know what I mean? Like if they will have no future opportunity to access the funds, then yes, we would look at that. I think that would be fair. That's the spirit of the program. If somebody's a few steps ahead of us, we are only where we are today, January 31st. So if there can only probably be a couple that could be ahead of us, just based on the building permits have not been submitted. There's only a few that have been submitted. So those would be the only people that would be eligible for those reimbursements now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Did I answer your question, Councillor
Yeah.
Michelle? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Councillor Lightfoot.
So if I can just state this, so to be clear, there's a few anomalies where people have already paid the bills, but the program's intent is that before the bill is paid for future activities, it be submitted to the village prior to those costs.
Yes, and the village would pay the archaeologist directly.
Okay.
And
We're not
if
in
I-
a cash outlay and then try to claim back kind of scenario for folks. It's intended to avoid that.
Thank you. Councillor Lightfoot.
And until the village services are attached to the house, I will assume there probably will be costs as things proceed. Maybe not for everyone, but for a number of people, the archaeology costs could be spread out from foundation to final occupation. Is that correct?
It is different for everybody. There's some property owners that have no requirements for any archaeology costs whatsoever. So, you know, they obviously won't incur the costs, and so they won't be eligible for the program because they won't have any archaeology costs. So it is really, it's different for pretty much every property.
So just to be clear as well, is this only for people that were in the village prior to the fire? Do we have that?
This
David
is
here?
the this is intended for anybody who has got a complete building permit application submitted by June the 30th.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought, and I just was checking to make sure I didn't miss anything there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions?
I think just for the benefit of the public, I think that come June that this council may re-look at that, extending it, should it be a successful program without, you might consider that. So, which the idea I think is to motivate people to start building. And that's the idea with the June 30th. So it's not meant to take away from anybody's ability to rebuild, but to provide motivation to do it quickly. So,
Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, all those in favor of this motion? Carried. Okay, we will move on to temporary fire hall, and again, our CIO, Diane.
Well, thank you again. This is a proposal to start to establish a temporary fire hall. So, as you all know, the fire hall burnt in the June 2021 fire, and since that time, the Lytton Fire and Rescue has been co-locating with the BC Wildfire Service at their base on South Main Street there. So, it's not always a problem, but when things are active, it can be quite a busy, intense place. And, you know, it's not built for two organizations to work out of. So as we are working on the establishing of a permanent fire hall, which is underway and like some initial analysis, but that's going to take time. And so in the meantime, we are proposing that we use a structure that's on the Aspen Planers Mill site. It's just in behind where the office is located. There's a steel structure there, but it will need some upgrades and some things done to it. So it needs some electrical, some heat, some insulation. It needs to have overhead doors that will roll up for the fire engines to drive in and out. And there have been discussions held with the consortium that's doing the work at Jackass Mountain, and they have expressed interest in assisting by providing some framing and lumber free, some labor to do some of the framing for us. So they have come to the table with that. Sorry, the only other thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about the need for the space At this time, we have one fire engine that's indoors at the BC Wildfire Service, and the rest of our equipment has to be outdoors. So the other fire engine and now the new rescue truck that we have recently received by donation. So that's hard on the equipment to be out in the elements all of the time, and certainly not ideal. So we're looking right now. We didn't get official quotes or anything. We've just done some calling around, got some estimates. We're looking at an investment in that building of approximately $130,000. None of the purchasing will be made without the regular Village of Lytton procurement policy. So many of the items will come back to this table because they'll be at the level that council will need to purchase. This is really looking for approval to start working on this in earnest, starting to get some of those quotes, starting to make some of these improvements to the building.
Great, thank you. We have a recommended motion. So we would like to put that forward.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
I move that council approve the proposed temporary fire hall location at the old mill site and direct staff to complete the necessary upgrades to the site, subject to the Village of Lytton's procurement policy.
Need a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. And questions for our CAO. Councillor Lightfoot.
I'm just curious, I assume Aspen Planers has been part of these discussions, and is there any compensation that they require for the use of the building?
They had indicated that we would not have to pay an annual rent for that structure. They have been involved in these discussions of the types of improvements that we would like to make on the site.
Councillor McCann.
I'm just playing the movie forward here a couple of years and saying, okay, so we have this, we've made these improvements to this building and we've kind of created a nice little space there. And then a new fire hall gets built and everything moves to the new fire hall. So what happens to the village's investment in this when all that happens? Like when you play it out, what are you thinking is going to happen then?
Well, I think at that time, I mean, we'd have a couple of options. I mean, well, really, I can only kind of think of one option. we could try to sell some of the pieces. You maybe try to sell, used overhead doors. I'm not sure what kind of markets are out there for these kinds of things. There's no question that to some extent, it will become a sunk cost. It is a temporary fix for something that, I think the initial proposals for a temporary fire hall were in the $1.5 million range because they didn't have an existing structure to use. This really alleviates a lot of the cost by having an existing structure. I mean, it's not our building, it's not our land, so we won't be able to sell it to somebody. So yeah, like I said, I mean, I think we should kind of go into it with a mindset of it's a sunk cost. And then we can try later on to recover whatever we can.
I think good old Aspen Planers can thank us for improving their property. That's what I think.
So what kind of a timeline are you thinking for this? Just out of curiosity here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I'm going to ask Brian Baxter to jump on and answer that because he's been working with some of the folks that would be doing the work. Brian, are you on the call? I can see your name.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Obviously, I need to talk with False Creek Alliance, who would be doing the majority of the work. But I would say my guesstimate would be that we could have it completed within 2 months.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, so on this motion, all those in favor?
Bonus.
Carried. Thank you. All right, so now we move to item number 8.2, which is the Chief Financial Officer. So back to Diane around the SOFI report.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. The SOFIA report, the Statement of Financial Information, is an annual report, is an annual requirement of the village to prepare this and to make it publicly available. It's required under the Financial Information Act. The one that we have that we're looking at today is from 2022. So you, of course, remember at the last meeting, we accepted the 2022 financial statements, the year-end ones. This report kind of falls out of that. I wanted to make just a couple things clear about it, though. It's actually not part of the audit. This is not an audited report in any way. The auditors assist us with compiling it, making sure that it reconciles and ties into the financial statements, but they have not they've not done any audit work specifically on this report. They're not required to. So it lists out. It meets the requirements of the Financial Information Act. So it lists out some of the obligations of the village around severances and guarantees and those types of things, if there are any. It then goes on to summarize the salaries and remuneration of the elected officials and employees that have a salary over $75,000. And then the final schedule that gets involved is a list of the contractors who were paid more than $25,000 in the year. So in the fiscal year 2022. So that's kind of the third schedule there. So once we have this report kind of ready to go, we bring it to council for approval, and then we make it available to the public, and we have to submit it up to Municipal Affairs Finance.
Thank you. We have a recommended motion to put forward. Councillor Lightfoot.
Would you like me to read it?
Sure, please.
That council approve the 2022 Statement of Financial Information, SOFI, report as presented.
And a seconder.
I'll second that.
Councillor McCann. And questions, comments?
I just have a
Councillor
comment.
Foss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Just the disappointment at seeing some of those numbers beside some of the contractors. I was really disappointed, and I knew we kind of caught wind of this before, but that we had paid Rubicon, for example, because at the time of the debris clearing and the sifting of the properties, we were told as residents that that was a volunteer organization. So to see that they were actually paid out $229,000 for that was a little upsetting, but that was that's history, and I just like to reassure. And there's other dubious costs there, but just from I think this council, and you can be reassured, we'll be a little bit more discerning. I think if we can be on some of those costs, it reflects some poor fiscal management, in my opinion. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? No. So all those in favor of accepting this report as presented? Those in favor?
Yes.
And carried. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see everybody's hand. All right, UBCM, Community Emergency Preparedness Grant. So back to CAO Monberket.
Thank you. This grant application was due to be submitted on January the 26th. And when we moved our council meeting ahead 1 week, I missed the opportunity to have a resolution before the application got submitted. So I have submitted it, and I let them know that I would hopefully be following up with a council resolution. So just so you know, this is an emergency support services equipment and training grant application. We have been working on, you're familiar with our mobile EOC trailer. We've been working on stocking that and getting all the supplies on it that that may be needed in the event of an emergency. The unique thing about our mobile EOC is that it is the only one in the area that's mobile. So if there is something happening in a remote area or somewhere needs additional supports, we have a little EOC that can move. And so it's really important to get it all stocked up with all of the items that we need. So we have submitted this grant applications for just over $29,000. We have a quote from the supplier that also includes some training that has not occurred yet on some of the initial equipment that was delivered for that mobile trailer. I do always kind of check in with Tanya Collins on these things. We've heard from earlier. just to see what she's doing from the LFN side of things, make sure we're coordinated and always trying to complement each other and not compete. So on the, on kind of a grant ask.
Good, thank you. We have it's actually a two-part motion here to put forward. Councillor McCann.
I will move that council approves staff to proceed with the 2024 Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, emergency support services equipment and training supported by the Union of BC Municipalities for a total of 29,900, yeah, is that right? Yeah, 29,978.64 for the Village of Lytton ESS evac trailer, supplies, and training. And that the mayor and chief administrative officer be authorized to execute the required documents.
And a seconder, Councillor Lightfoot. And any comments from anyone? Questions? No? All those in favor? Aye. Carried. Great. Moving on now to item number 8.3, and back to Diane for this around the province of BC contribution agreement.
Thank you very much. We have been talking about this for quite a while now. We know that initially the province of British Columbia had announced an additional $21 million in funding for Lytton for the rebuilding phase, the end of the recovery and into the rebuilding phase. I think it was at the end of 2022, the very beginning of 2023, we did sign an agreement for 3.4 million of that. That was for staff, consultants, and expenses through 2023. We now have the agreement for the remaining 17.6 or 17.5 or 17.6 million. That includes, it's basically made up of 4 major items. So one item is the Public Works building. So that there's funding included in here to rebuild the Public Works building, taking into account that a Public Works building is probably not eligible for any other funding source that the village might be able to access. There's funding in there for housing for essential services. And this is basically to ensure that we have some money so that as we're building other things like a village hall or a fire hall or wherever we decide to go with those items, we have some funding available that we could include some accommodation for really essential service positions. So maybe that's, maybe we work with the school board or the health center, or maybe it's Village of Lytton staff, whatever the case might be. It's just to make sure we have some units available for essential employees. There's a line in there for the recovery capacity. So that, again, that's all of the salaries and consultants and all of the expenses that go along with the office through to the end of 2024. And the site preparation costs, that's the majority of it, 9.9 million. And that includes the funding for the backfilling. That includes funding for things like the archaeology program we just talked about, and some other items like that. So the way that the agreement is set up, because we've been working on the backfilling for a number of months and the province was working on this agreement at the same time, upon signing this agreement, we get an initial payment of 4.7 million, which is the backfilling costs that we have incurred up to the end of December. From that point forward, all of the items are on a reimbursement basis. So we incur the cost first, we submit a report, and then we receive a payment from the province. There's a template reporting that the province is requiring us to provide every month. It requires a council resolution to go along with it. And I think that's just to make sure that council has the opportunity to stay aware of how the monies are being spent. The report includes not just an outline of what's been spent, but it also includes any contracts that we've entered into, any changes to those contracts, as well as any consultation activities that we've undertaken with any of our neighboring communities. So it's a little bit different than any of the agreements we've had before. And I think that's, and then the only other part of it is that any all of the procurement must be done in an open and transparent manner. So any items that are direct award actually require the approval of the Assistant Deputy Minister of EMCR. So we'll have to take those to this table first for approval, and then we would further them on to EMCR for approval. And I do believe those are the kind of the only other highlight. We have to include an unaudited schedule in our financial statements. So we now have a number of schedules in our financial statements that support all of these different grant programs that we've been successful in achieving. So that's it.
Thank you. I hope I'm correct here, but we have 8.3 and 8.4, one with a motion just approving the contribution agreement, and then the second one approving the monthly reporting report as presented. So we have two-part motions to put forward. So we'll start with 8.3 around the contribution agreement. Who would like to make that motion? Councillor Lightfoot.
I move that council approve the province of BC contribution agreement and that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to sign the contribution agreement.
And a seconder.
Sure.
Councillor McCann. And do we have any questions or comments about it? Councillor Lightfoot.
I'm just curious how this might affect our receipt of invoicing. I do believe that I've heard occasionally in the past that timely invoicing from contractors can sometimes be an issue, and will this give us any clout, I guess the word is, to encourage a more timely submission of invoicing?
I think what we're going to need to do from this point forward is make sure that all the contractors that we work with under this grant understand how the payment cycle is going to work, so that if they delay and then drop it on us, we're not going to be able to turn around and check the next day, which is, we've probably been over accommodating in some cases, because we know that, it's been built up, but we're going to be very clear with them. This is when we submit and this is when you'll get paid. So if you miss that, you're in the next cycle.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor McCann.
I'm just going to clarify some of the wording in the information. Basically, what we're talking about, though, is that the agreement covers costs for site preparation from July 1st of 2023 to December 31st, 2023. So stuff that has already happened and been paid for. And then the remaining costs from January 8th, 24 to December 31st, 24. So that there's some stuff has already been done and we're paying for that. And then the other is predicted. So there's two things going on there, correct?
So, Councillor McCann, can you tell me where you are in the report? Because I see that the agreement covers costs incurred for site preparation from July 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
then the
that is
remaining
correct.
costs
And then
from
the remaining costs 31st of 2024. So two different costs to December 31st, 2024. That's correct?
Yeah, it's only the site preparation costs that start at July 1st.
Yeah.
Right? The rest of the costs start on January 8th of 2024.
Yeah. But everything ends on the 24th of December 24th. I get you.
That's
now.
correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
It was a little muddy for me. Thank you very much.
That's the distinction I'm trying to make there.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of this motion? And carried. Now we move on to 8.4, which is the monthly reporting. We have a motion here. Councillor Lightfoot.
Move that council approve the monthly reporting report as presented and that council authorize the chief financial officer to submit the report to the province of British Columbia as required by the contribution agreement.
And a seconder. Councillor Toss. Are there any comments or questions about this monthly report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. And carried. Thank you. And thank you, thank you, CAO Marquette, for that. So we move on to 8.5, 3.1 recovery manager, and I believe Don Wong is going to be speaking about the community infrastructure piece here.
Hi all, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, awesome. Sorry. I apologize. The problem with these meetings, when somebody calls in on my phone, I get all panicky about which button to hit, trying not to hang up on you guys. Thank you, Mayor and Council and everybody. It's pretty exciting. As you know, we talked before, we've moved from recovery to rebuild. And this report that we're putting forward is the first report to council to start talking about the rebuild of community infrastructure. If I could ramble on just for the background, Infrastructure Canada has made available rebuilding capital dollars for the Village of Lytton. It's under the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program framework, which includes criteria that requires the infrastructure to head towards being net zero and incorporate fire resiliency, open to all community members, and as well, the monies that they've made available have to be spent within the Village of Lytton proper. As this report is basically asking council for the permission to begin a feasibility study concept plan, which is the planning associated with the community infrastructure, and approaching Infrastructure Canada to help with that, with those planning dollars, so we can bring on an architect and a cost consultant so we can start developing the plan to go back to them and say, this is what we're going to go forward with. That concept plan will be brought back to council and the community as a whole, just so folks can see what's been come up with. And I can need to give a bit more background on that. And it'll be the basis of our first drawdown with Infrastructure Canada. As part of the rebuild process, the village in September 2023 hosted a community meeting online and in person just to get input from the greater community of Lytton to see what kind of community infrastructure that the village should focus on as priorities for this first round. Council came out in the report. You'll see council came out with a number of items ranging from the public works buildings, the fire hall, and farmers market. But the respondents actually came up with very similar lists as council, mainly the fire hall, public washrooms, farmers market, and with a great comment of saying, hey, they'd like to see combined community spaces, right? Things that are kind of open to the public, as well as kind of highlighting the partnerships within the community as a whole. Based on that, we've met and council has come up with certain criteria that kind of meets Infrastructure Canada's funding needs, which are fire resiliency, net zero, to be inclusive, sustainable, and multi-purpose, but also looking at the uniqueness that's Lytton. And this is going to be all going into concept plan, to be clear, but the uniqueness of Lytton and its in-house capacities, its location, and just really creating a Lytton-based solution for as we move forward with community infrastructure. Based on that, for this concept plan, we're suggesting going through with the farmers market festival space, public washrooms and drinking water, possible library, info, visitor center, museum, pool and park, and multi-use public facilities throughout it all. The study will be focused between 360 and 420 Fraser Street. Those are village properties. And as I say, based on council's approval, we'd like to approach Infrastructure Canada to fund the planning of this immediately.
Thank you, Don. So just so I understand it, we're looking at concept plans, nothing final, no decisions, something to bring forward to work with, and to have input into?
Yes, what we do is bring on an architect as well as a cost consultant to give us some conceptual drawings and some ideas and things that we can bring back to council as well as the community as a whole, just so people can get an idea of what these buildings could or may look like with those kind of conditions put on them. But nothing is finalized until after that process and we get the final approval from Infrastructure Canada that we can go forward with this envelope of funding. We would go to public tender again for general contractors to likely do a design build to get the final works going.
Okay, thank you. I guess we should put the motion forward first, and then we'll continue with discussion. Who would like to make that motion? Michelle.
Councilor Michelle.
I move that council approve village staff to request planning funding from Infrastructure Canada to develop a feasibility study concept plan for community infrastructure.
Seconder.
Seconded, Toss.
Toss, and now questions and comments. Anybody have any for Dawn? Councillor Toss.
I just have a comment. I'm so delighted with this moving forward, and I love that, Dawn, you used the word immediately and exciting, and I concur with both of those. So thank you very much for the work on this. This is fantastic to see some decisions and movement. It's great.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Lightfoot.
I guess I agree with Councillor Toss, but I also want to say that I was happy to see that there's recognition of limited, that we need to address in-house capacities and the fact that we have limited operating costs. And I think the feasibility of the community in the long run hinges upon us not being overly ambitious in creating mega structures that we won't be able to fund in the long run. So I'm hoping that the operating costs will be part of the consideration as the concept plans are developed.
Thank you. Other comments, Councillor McCann?
Thank you. My only comment is that I would like to see a variety of options explored in the concept plans. Like there is plan A and there's plan B and then there's plan C, and then you could do this together, so that there would be at least 3 different options to have a look at and to consider the pros and cons of, rather than just, this is what we have for you and it's a done deal. So I like to have some kind of choice and pull the good things out of one and put it in another if necessary, but just that would be my only request as far as this is concerned. My understanding is that would be intended, but I just want to make sure I'm on record as saying I want to see that.
Councillor Lightfoot?
And I'd just like to add, building on Councillor McCann's comments, that provides excellent opportunity for public engagement, which is something that our community has been hungry for a long time. And they had an opportunity to initially say what they would like, but to see concepts and give more feedback, I think, is important to have a successful end result.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are there any other comments? So Dawn, you're let off the hook for answering questions, I think. So thank you very much for that. So we have a motion, and all those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, Dawn.
Melissa.
Oh, Melissa.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
She said yes.
She said yes, yeah. Okay. Unanimously carried. All right. So we're on to item number 9, which is bylaws. And the first is our council procedure amendment bylaw. And I'm going to ask our CO to speak to it, Lisa.
So yes, council had talked about changing the council meetings from Wednesdays to Tuesdays. And so that's one thing that we're amending. So second and fourth Tuesday of every month. Minus the December meeting, we'll be moving it to the 1st and the 3rd because of just because of the way the holidays work. But I will bring back a meeting schedule next time. So we're just asking for the first 3 readings for this, and as well, I'm just defining and replacing the one section under bylaws. That's one other thing we'd talk about, just separating it into saying bylaws for readings and bylaws for adoption, so it's easier on the agenda to read. So that's what that's about. So that's kind of what the amendments are for.
Okay, that's the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking for the first 3 readings.
Okay, so who would like to make that motion? Councillor McCann?
Council consider giving the first three readings to council procedure amendment bylaw number 744, 2024.
Seconder? Councillor Lightfoot. Are there any comments or questions? Other than, yes, I would fully support changing it to Tuesday. So all those in favor?
Aye.
And carried. There's Melissa's hand. Thank you, Melissa. Okay, carried. And fees and charges amendment bylaw. And do we have Shannon's story on tonight?
Mayor O'Connor, I'm going to do this one for
Thank you.
Sharon's story. Yes, she ended up to not be available tonight. So the bylaw amendment that's in front of you is really just to kind of update some of the fees and charges that are contained in the bylaw. So you may remember a couple of times last year we made amendments to specific pieces of it. This is some of the pieces that we didn't touch. And really it comes down to there were charges listed in the bylaw for things like pool use and whatnot, which obviously we don't have anymore. So we're removing those. We updated the actual fee numbers for some of the miscellaneous charges. Like, for example, an NSF check, our fee used to be $30, but we pay the bank more than $30 when we have an NSF check. So we have to up some of those fees. The whole intent of these fees is that the village should not lose money on providing any of these services. We will be doing a more fulsome analysis of the water and sewer once those systems are up and running at their kind of full capacity, and potentially making recommendations at that time regarding those rates, but we haven't addressed it in this bylaw amendment. It's really to deal with the miscellaneous charges and remove charges that were in the bylaw that for things we no longer offer.
Thank you. We have a motion to put forward. Who would like to make that motion? Sorry, Councillor Toss?
Sure. I move that council consider giving first three readings to fees and charges amendment bylaw number 743, 2024.
And seconder? Thank you, Councillor McCann. Questions, comments? Councillor Toss?
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I'm in favor of this motion. However, I'm hoping that when the water and sewer are looked at, that maybe we can have a discussion at that time around the animal control bylaw as well. It's kind of a moot point. I don't want to delay this bylaw by speaking against it. However, I think that some of the designations or the impound costs and whatnot don't seem relevant to our account or to the village, and we're not in the impound business, but maybe that we can look at that. And then I have a question. In the future, once we have capacity, is the intention that we will provide those services again that came with the operators and whatnot? Like, is that a long-term goal, or is that sort of something we don't want to offer anymore, or are we going to look at it in the future when we have the capacity?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the pertinent part there. Which services?
So the operator costs, so the excavating, I think it was, and you could.
Yeah. I think once we are kind of through the rebuild, we definitely can look at that again. We're just looking at capacity and whether or not we could deal with that with everything else that's happening.
Absolutely.
And really felt that it wasn't the best use of our time at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lightfoot.
I just want to add voice to reintroducing Schedule A equipment rental in the future when the capacity is there. I know in the past we had 3 contractors within the extended community that offered those services, but at this point there's not a lot of competition for the village, and it is a revenue generator if we can get an operator in that can rent out the backhoe or the other equipment that we had. Having said that, when I look at the hourly rate in Schedule A for that particular activity right now, it's too low. At $86 an hour for a backhoe and operator, really should be more like 120 and 175, but all that aside, I think my only question is in an emergency, and, you know, God forbid we have to deal with it, but in an emergency, say the ministry or the highways or someone wants to use that equipment, would there be an industry rate or a emergency BC rate that they pay for that equipment that's already established for seconding external equipment?
I would say there isn't a rate that's currently established. No, I think we would deal with that on a one-off basis.
Okay, but
Similar to how we established a rate last year for the gray water disposal,
Yeah.
right?
or the forestry use of our fire equipment, they have established a rate for that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
No, ideally, in the long run, we'll be able to offer those services to the extended community, but I'm prepared to take it the final or third reading tonight, just to expedite it.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
List is frozen. Councilor Michelle is frozen.
Is she? Uh-oh. She has.
Doesn't look
Hopefully
happy.
she'll come back. All right, correspondence, we're on to, so we have 2 items of correspondence. The first one is the Gold Country. So I do attend the Gold Country meetings, and this is written here as correspondence or items for action. So in the past, Gold Country fees were paid for, I believe, 2 years, and now they're going to a yearly rate. The 2 years ends after this year. So if we chose to continue with Gold Country, we would then pay for next year. So it's not urgent at this time, but we can look at whether we want to do something with this. Gold Country is offering Lytton 2 rates. One is for a geocache membership only. So I did ask about that because there are a number of geocache sites in Lytton or around the area here, some right in the village or was. And what they've done is after the fire, they've gone through and they've removed any that are in danger spots, you know, like in trees that are falling over, burned trees, those kinds of things. But there are some that are still active, right, and on the website. So what they're doing is they're actually offering this for all municipalities, either just the geocache rate for $1,200 or a full membership for, and I don't see it listed here, but they're offering it for $1,000 for the Village of Lytton. I believe that the Village of Lytton has been with Gold Country since its inception, I believe, for many, many years. So yeah. So we do have a motion. Do we have a motion? Yes. No, we don't have a motion. We will make a motion. So are there any questions or thoughts on this? Councillor McCann?
Remind me what the Village of Lytton gets from being a part of Gold Country, because I remember having this discussion a few years back and someone saying that, well, we're not really getting anything from this and it's not really that great. So just remind me what the benefits are.
What I've taken from it is it depends how much the village reaches out for support and help. For example, they manage some grant writing opportunities. They do go to these trade shows or tourism kind of shows, and they promote the entire region, right, including Lytton. They did put out, they do a visitor guide and a trail guide, which I don't know if we have any trails around here established, but a visitor guide where they're promoting tourism, in particular, it's economy, but it's our economics, but it's mainly tourism for Lytton. Councillor Lightfoot, you may have some more insight into this.
I know Gold Country, when I first came on council, like in the 2008 or whatever, I believe the yearly fee at that time was $3,500 a year. At a certain point, maybe in 2015, 2017 or whatever, they changed it so that it was on the tax, collected through the taxes through the TNRD. And at that time, the village's contribution actually fell to about $1,000. That was shortly after Merit joined Gold Country, and I'm not sure what the membership is now, because once Merit, in my mind, once Merit joined Gold Country, they weren't promoting the canyon route up to Barkerville or whatever. The Coquihalla became more of a destination. And so I think we lost a little bit of our impact from the original days. Having said that, during my term when I was mayor, I believe we hosted 2 geocaching launches in Lytton, well attended by hundreds of people that came into the community, predominantly families that were looking for low-cost activities to explore the countryside. The books were made. The yearly pamphlet outlined the route in Lytton and gave opportunity for businesses to say, you know, drop in and see my restaurant or whatever. So I think for $1,000 or $1,200, it's a great deal. You can't put an ad in a newspaper for, you know, that much. My confusion comes in where it says the geocache membership rate is $1,200. The full Gold Country membership is $1,000. While both levels provide excellent benefits, we have reduced the full membership rate for Lytton to aid in the recovery. So is there 2 fees associated? If you want to be part of the geocache, it's $1,200, and if you just want to be a member, it's $1,000.
No, the member would include the geocache.
Oh,
So
that's a good deal.
So that is a good deal. And just to clarify some of your points, this year they're stepping away from the contributions through the TNRD to pay, so going directly to the municipalities to pay. And as far as Merit, my understanding, if I remember it correctly, I don't have my notes here, but Merit is considering or has stepped away, and the Gold Country is trying to re-engage them. At this point, there are a few that have stepped away from it for varying reasons. But I would agree with you that $1,000 for 2 years to be included would make sense, and then we could reevaluate after that.
Yeah, I was just going to concur with you, especially the timeliness of it, that we're looking to promote Lytton, and it's so crucial to get our name out there and the economic development.
Would somebody like to make a motion, or?
I was going to say, I'll make a motion that the Village of Lytton enters into a membership agreement with Gold Country Community Society.
The officer is writing that down.
So you what, you
The
do
full
want to,
Gold
the
Country
full, that's all
membership
to make
rate
sure,
at
the full,
$1,000.
right. Excellent. Perfect.
Okay, a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Michelle? All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. So then the second piece is around the Forest Enhancement Society, which I believe is, we're just looking at this for information. We have a motion, to receive this for information. Who would like to make that motion?
So moved, Toss.
Thank you. A seconder? Councillor Lightfoot. And are there any comments or questions around this? There is a letter and a pamphlet circulated. Seeing none, all those in favor? And carried. Okay, we will move on to reports. So I do have a report here. It's been 3 weeks, I think, since our last council meeting. So on January 12th, I attended a webinar hosted by Raleigh Russell. And as you recall, before the provincial cabinet change, he was parliamentary secretary responsible for Lytton. And now his title is parliamentary secretary for rural development. The webinar was focused on the resiliency of rural communities and how they can thrive in the face of wildfire, droughts, floods, etc. while considering not only the usual economic drivers, but also the responsibilities we have for the stewardship of the land, and reconciliation, consultation, all of those things, and how healthy ecosystems support cultural, social, and economic sustainability. It was interesting to hear some of the new legislation that may be coming our way around this. So that we'll be hearing more about that in the future. On January the 18th, I attended a TNRD regular council meeting where a motion was brought forward to instruct TNRD staff to begin negotiation with the village staff regarding the possible purchase of the property where our village office once stood. And again, as you recall, our village office property and building was actually is owned actually by the TNRD, and the village had a lease to purchase agreement with them, which was about 20 years into a 25-year agreement. So I'm pleased to share that this motion was passed unanimously, almost unanimously by the TNRD board. So we'll look forward to hearing updates on the discussions between the two parties. I've had a couple of media interviews, most recently with Sarah Penton on CBC Radio. I've spoken to a number of residents on the phone and had conversations around various topics. And on Monday, 2 days ago, I attended the first year anniversary celebration of the Lytton First Nation Community Store and gave congratulations and appreciation from the village of Lytton at that event. That's my report. And we'll move on to Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I don't have a lot to report. We did a planning session on the 16th of January. The coffee with council on Monday was wonderfully attended. I've been spending a lot of time researching some issues around archaeology and learning a bit more about that. So that's helped me understand everything a little bit better. And just the comment that I think staff is doing an excellent job, and consistently impressed with the initiative and how people are getting things done, and being receptive to the needs of the community. And I just want to say a really sincere thank you, making us look good sometimes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Councillor McCann?
I haven't done a lot of stuff, but I have been attending meetings. So I managed to make it to the Monday morning coffees and speaking with people and listening to people and hearing their concerns that are raised from time to time. I can't remember any shining issues. We had a couple of pretty good conversations though, didn't we? Talking about the way things are moving forward and making sure people understand the initiatives that we're passing here, and like the building permit and all this stuff, just kind of reminding people that that's out there, and talking with them about that. So those Monday meetings, I've been attending. The Tuesdays, I attend the Kumsheen Heritage Committee meetings. So I've attended 3 of those since our last meeting and heard about things that are moving, that come to that committee as far as local archaeology is concerned. It was really interesting to take part in the special council meeting on the 16th and actually have some discussions about possible futures for Lytton and our community. And on the 25th, I met with the recovery manager and the CO regarding stockpile management planning. Was just a nice opportunity to get some thinking ahead about something there. That's it. And that's it for this time.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle?
Nothing to report this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lightfoot?
Like the rest of us, I attended the special planning meeting on the 16th. On the 17th, I sat in with the unmet needs group. They're still floundering a bit and asking for some clarification on purpose. Ryan, who's been chairing the meeting, is away for a few weeks, and they want to help, but they're not sure that they're effective, and they're considering how to re-envision themselves in the future. So it was decided that we would cancel the February meeting. So hopefully in March, they really need some feedback from citizens. Is there a need for them? What, is it time just to move on, maybe stand down until a need arises? But they're hoping that council can actually give some input or direction. On the 23rd, I had a Zoom meeting with the NDIT, the Northern Development Initiative Trust, the local regional advisory committee had the election of their executive. Margot Wagner is the chair, and Jim Smith, electoral area E, is the vice chair, and the board representatives for the NDIT board in Prince George were also selected. Samaritan's Purse wanted me to sit down with them, and they hadn't been able to attend the unmet needs, but they wanted to get an understanding of what the citizens of Lytton need. I told them I really was unclear of what they could offer and what we needed. We sort of all agreed that they want to contribute wherever the need is identified. I suggested that even though citizens come back, sometimes they miss the community events that we had so many times. And just again, anyone that wants to give me any feedback on how I can encourage these groups to assist, it would be welcome. Went to coffee on Monday, and after the coffee on Monday, the Museum Society held their first meeting to reestablish the society. Many of you know that unfortunately Richard Forrest passed away in the last short while, and condolences to him and his family. Richard was quite a motivating force for a number of years with the museum. Tom Ross was the vice chair, and he has agreed to take the helm for a while. I have to thank Lorna Vandrich in particular for organizing a lot of the details and helping reestablish this group. They're encouraging citizen participation in their planning as they move ahead. There will be an election this fall, I guess, and so in the meantime, they would like to meet with senior staff from the village next time our CAO is in town. They're encouraging citizen participation, as I said, but also they will be selling memberships, and I'm not sure, for decades I've been a member. It's a very small fee, but if you have interest in the heritage of the community and want to support this group, I would suggest that they may be at a coffee clutch in the near future with membership. It's been a wildly mild January, and in many ways it almost feels like it's spring, and so I'm feeling that a lot of us are thinking we're behind the gun, but it is the last day of January, and I want to commend staff and my fellow council members for plodding along as we achieve steady progress. And so thank you all, staff and council members.
Thank you. Okay, it's time now to move into closed meeting. Yes. So we do have a motion to put forward as to do that. We've a number of items here. So who would like to make the motion to move into closed meeting? Councillor Lightfoot. Would you like to read it, or? She said, I so moved.
So good. Okay, I'll read it.
Yeah.
The council closed the meeting to the public to discuss matters related to community charter sections 91A, 91B, 91C, 91E, 91G, 91J. That's it.
Thank you. A seconder? Councillor McCann, all those in favor? And thank you everyone for attending tonight's meeting, and I'm going to turn it back over to CEO
Thank you, Mayor Connor. That concludes the public portion of our regular council meeting of January 31st. We ask that the public and staff please remove yourself from the meeting as we go into the closed session. Thank you for attending today and have a wonderful night. And I invite council to take a short recess.